When a single man adopted two young black boys, his neighbors and even his own relatives mocked him. They whispered he's crazy and laughed at the idea of him raising kids alone. But years later, the very people who insulted him were left speechless. What happened in between will break your heart and then heal it. What do you think? Can love and dedication alone make someone a good parent, no matter what others say? Drop your answers in the comments. I'll be reading them. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit subscribe to Rise Against Odds and press the bell icon so you never miss these powerful stories of courage and redemption. Michael had always wanted to be a father, but life had taken a different path. He was single, focused on his career, and most people assumed fatherhood was not in the cards for him. But when he learned about two brothers, aged 5 and 7, stuck in foster care, his heart was moved. The boys, Daniel and Jordan, had bounced from home to home, rejected because siblings were harder to place together. Michael couldn't bear the thought of them being separated. Against all advice, he applied to adopt both. The backlash was immediate. Neighbors shook their heads. "What does a single white man know about raising black boys?" they whispered. Even his relatives doubted him. His sister bluntly told him, "You'll ruin your life and theirs." But Michael's determination only grew. He attended parenting classes, studied African American culture, and made sure his home was ready with books, toys, and warm beds. The day he brought Daniel and Jordan home, he promised them one thing: you'll never be separated and you'll never be alone again. Still, the laughter and judgment followed them everywhere. In grocery stores, strangers stared. At school, parents made comments under their breath. The boys noticed. One night, Daniel asked softly, "Dad, why do people look at us funny?" Michael hugged him and said, "Because they don't understand love. But we do." Michael quickly realized that parenting wasn't just about providing food and shelter. Daniel and Jordan came with scars, not physical, but emotional. Years in the foster system had made them wary, afraid of being abandoned again. Bedtime was the hardest. Jordan often cried himself to sleep, clutching a stuffed bear. Daniel would wake in the middle of the night, sneaking to Michael's room just to check if he was still there. Michael never got angry. Instead, he comforted them. "I'm not going anywhere," he repeated until they began to believe it. But the outside world wasn't so kind. At school, the boys faced bullying. Kids teased, saying, "That's not your real dad." Some parents pulled their children away. During playdates, Michael reported the bullying, but even some teachers seemed to doubt the family. One parent meeting turned ugly when a father muttered, "This experiment won't last." Michael clenched his fists but kept calm. "This isn't an experiment," he replied firmly. "This is my family." Money was tight, too. Raising two kids on one income meant sacrifices. Michael worked late nights, sometimes skipping meals to ensure his boys never went without. And yet, every small success made it worth it. Daniel's first time scoring a goal in soccer, Jordan's smile when he finally made a friend. Slowly, the boys began to trust that Michael wasn't going to leave them. But the mocking never stopped. People still smirked behind his back. What they didn't realize was that those two little boys were growing into something extraordinary. As the years passed, the bond between Michael and the boys only grew stronger. What began as a home filled with uncertainty turned into a place of laughter, discipline, and hope. Michael poured himself into fatherhood. He learned how to braid hair, sat through endless parent-teacher meetings, and showed up to every game, recital, and school event. When the boys struggled, he was there with encouragement. When they succeeded, he cheered louder than anyone. Daniel, the older brother, discovered a love for science. He spent hours building small projects, often filling the living room with experiments. Jordan, on the other hand, found his gift in art, covering pages with sketches that impressed even his teachers. But the whispers never completely faded. At parent events, some people still made comments. "It just looks strange," one mother whispered to another. Michael overheard but smiled. His focus was never on pleasing the doubters. His focus was raising men of integrity. One day, Daniel came home upset after a classmate mocked him. "You're not even like your dad. You don't match." Daniel slammed his backpack down, tears in his eyes. Michael knelt and said softly, "Families aren't about matching. Families are about love. Do you know why I chose you and Jordan?" Daniel shook his head. Michael hugged him tightly. "Because the world didn't see your worth. But I did, and I will always fight for you." That night, Daniel whispered to Jordan before bed, "Dad's the real deal." And for the first time in a long while, both boys fell asleep smiling. Behind closed doors, Michael sometimes felt exhausted. He had given up his own dreams for theirs. But when he looked at his sons, now thriving, growing, and slowly healing, he knew he had made the best choice of his life. What the mockers didn't realize was that those little boys were on their way to becoming something that would silence every cruel word. By the time Daniel and Jordan reached high school, everything began to change. Daniel had grown into a confident young man, winning regional science competitions. His projects attracted attention from universities, and local newspapers began writing about his brilliance. Jordan, with his natural talent for art, had already showcased his work at a community gallery. Teachers praised both boys, not only for their talent, but for their kindness and leadership. Michael couldn't have been prouder. Yet, the same neighbors and acquaintances who once mocked him for adopting two black boys began to notice. The whispers turned into curious questions. How did he raise them so well? Those boys are remarkable. One evening at a school fundraiser, Michael stood quietly in the corner as Daniel received an award for academic excellence. The principal said, "This young man's work is going to change lives." The crowd applauded, and for a brief moment, Michael caught sight of some of the very people who had laughed at him years earlier. Their smiles now carried shame. After the ceremony, one of those parents approached Michael. Nervously, she said, I owe you an apology. Years ago, I didn't understand. But looking at your sons today, you were right. They're extraordinary." Michael didn't respond with anger or pride. He simply nodded and said, "They always were. It just took some people longer to see it." At home, Daniel and Jordan surprised their dad with a framed photo, the three of them together at the park from years ago. On it, they had written, "Our hero, our dad." Michael's eyes filled with tears. In that moment, he realized something powerful. It wasn't just about proving people wrong. It was about proving to his sons that love, sacrifice, and faith in each other could overcome anything. The world had mocked him once, but now the world watched in admiration. Years later, the full circle moment arrived. Daniel received a scholarship to a top university to study engineering, while Jordan was accepted into an art academy on the strength of his breathtaking portfolio. The boys were no longer the frightened children who once clung to Michael for security. They were strong, confident young men, ready to change the world. On the day of their farewell celebration, the community gathered to honor their achievements. Many of the same neighbors who had once whispered and mocked stood in the crowd, clapping and smiling. Some even wiped away tears. The regret in their eyes was clear. One elderly neighbor, who had been among the loudest critics, approached Michael with trembling hands. "I thought you were making a mistake," she admitted. "I didn't believe in you or in them. But I was wrong. You gave those boys a chance no one else would. And now look at them." Michael smiled warmly. It was never about proving anyone wrong. It was about giving them the love they always deserved. Daniel stepped forward and took the microphone. His voice shook with emotion as he said, "We wouldn't be here today without our dad. People doubted him. They doubted us. But he never gave up. He showed us that love makes a family, not blood, not looks, love." The room erupted in applause. Jordan held up one of his paintings, a portrait of their family. The three of them together, hand in hand, standing tall against a storm in the background. At the bottom, it read, "Together we rise." That day, the mockery that once haunted Michael's family was replaced with admiration. And those who had judged them most harshly carried a heavy truth. They had wasted years doubting something they should have celebrated. Michael didn't need their apologies. He already had everything he ever wanted: the love of his sons and the legacy of proving that true family is built on heart, not opinion.